Here's another example of some basic probability questions. So let's remind ourselves that when we're dealing with probability, trying to find the probability of an event, it's just good over total. Total being the total number of things in your sample space, and good being the number of things in your sample space that do what you're asking to do. So in this case, determine the sample space of the experiment, that is, list all possible simple random samples of size n. Well, up here we have the people that are being sent on this retreat, right, to this conference. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. So instead of listing their names over and over again, we're just going to have J for John, R for Roberto, right, C for Clarice, D for Dominique, and M for Marco. So there's our 5 items. So you can imagine just 5 pieces of paper with these letters written on them. We're going to pick 2 of them. How many different ways can we do that? Okay, so we can have JR, JC, right, JD, or JM. Now, because this is 2 people going off to a conference, would RJ be different from JR? And you have to see that those 2 things are equal, because picking Roberto and then John versus picking John then Roberto is still the same 2 people going to the conference. So we're not going to bother with listing all these things in both orders. So it's best to just be systematic. Start with the first letter and then move through. So JR, JC, da da da. Now move on to the second letter, right? So now we can move on to the R's. And I don't have to go back to J because I've already got JR up here. So I just do RC, RD, RM, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next letter. We'll move on to the C's. So we've got C, D, C, M, and then lastly D, M. So if we count these up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So our sample space is 10. And this is listing out the entire sample space right there. Okay, part B, what is the probability that Clarice and Dominique attend the conference? Well, Clarice and Dominique is Clarice and Dominique, and if we use this, out of all those, it's going to be 1 out of 10.1. What is the probability that Clarice attends the conference? So now just Clarice attends the conference. Well, here's John and Clarice, right? Here's Roberto and Clarice. Here's Clarice. Ew, don't want to do that. This one, right, is also them, and this one. So there's our 4 of them. So 4 out of 10, which we would reduce to 2/5, or we would just write it as 0.4. And then finally, what is the probability that John stays home? Well, that means all the people that don't have John in them, right? All the pairs that don't have John. So these are the 4 that have John going. So the other 6, right? 6 out of 10. Again, we would reduce it to 3/5 or just write it as 0.6. So there's some more examples of basic simple probability.